That's right, possibly the fastest U-turn in recent political history. This was, of course, the pledge that Liz Truss and her campaign set out last night to really match the level at which public sector employees are paid with private sector employees' wages. We know that currently wages in London and the South East are higher in the private sector, and in the private sector wages elsewhere in the country are lower. By having regional pay boards, you would be able to save money by matching public and private wages. And also the argument went that that would lessen the crowding out effect, help grow the private sector in the areas of the country where wages are lower. Well, immediately the opponents of the Liz Truss campaign came out and said in effect this would mean pay cuts for doctors, nurses, teachers, policemen and all the rest of it. Now, the Liz Truss campaign initially started to think about pushing back. Of course, one of their arguments was that this would be a long-term rolling out, not so much a pay cut, but a slower rate of pay rise to even out the system over the long term, as they said in their press release. But it seems like the calculation was made within the campaign that the damage was already done, that the briefing from the Rishi Sunak campaign that 9 billion or so of saving would mean £1,500 taken from the wages of people outside of London and the South East. The Labour Party saying each region that wasn't London or the South East would lose hundreds of millions of investment in their economy. The TUC saying this would mean immediate wage cuts. Well, whilst some of those claims were questionable, the damage seemed to have been done, and the Liz Truss campaign really rather quickly, in the grand scheme of things, withdrew that pledge. Now, this is definitely a U-turn, a screeching U-turn, as it was described by the Rishi Sunak campaign. However, the Liz Truss campaign has hit out at the Rishi Sunak campaign for describing it as a U-turn. The Liz Truss campaign has put out a briefing note of 9 separate U-turns they claim that Rishi Sunak has made, everything from VAT to welfare to China to EU regulation to grammar schools and the rest of it. So really, we're getting back to this sort of tit-for-tat, who has U-turned more.
Scotland, Tom, to a large degree, because we heard as well, didn't we, from Liz Truss laying into Nicola Sturgeon last night. And it's provoked somewhat of a pretty big row north of the border.
It certainly has. The words that Liz Truss used was to the effect that she would ignore Nicola Sturgeon, and that has really created a really rather large row in Scotland. Of course, Nicola Sturgeon is the democratically elected First Minister of Scotland. It would be pretty hard to govern the United Kingdom, to be the Prime Minister for the whole United Kingdom, if you say you would not listen to one of those key devolved entities, or at least the person at the head of one of those key devolved entities. That's something that Seb Payne, who was conducting that interview of the Financial Times, picked up Liz Truss on at the time. Now, I suppose the Liz Truss campaign may argue it was a bit of tongue-in-cheek. It was a bit of speaking about her attitude towards, or at least her feelings towards, Nicola Sturgeon, and how many within the Conservative Party think that Nicola Sturgeon has been weaponising devolution, using the powers that were granted under devolution as a sort of full-time state-funded campaign for splitting up the United Kingdom. So potentially the derision with which Liz Truss spoke about Nicola Sturgeon may well do well for her within Conservative members. However, it might make governing a little bit harder. Let's have a listen to what Liz Truss said about unionism and about Nicola Sturgeon last night.
I feel like I'm a child of the union, that I really believe we are a family and we're better together. And I think the best thing to do with Nicola Sturgeon is ignore her. I think she's... I'm sorry.
It's a bit difficult when she's First Minister, though. She's got a democratically elected position, just as you would.
I'm sorry, she's an attention seeker, Seb. That's what she is. And what we need to do is show the people of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales what we are delivering for them, and making sure that all of our government policies apply right across the United Kingdom.
Well, there we have it, branded as an attention seeker. A huge cheer within that room in Exeter of Conservative Party members from the southwest of the United Kingdom. But perhaps that might make governing that little bit harder.
Indeed. And Tom, let's just end this, because we were talking yesterday, weren't we, about polls and the kind of idea that Liz Truss was in the lead, that she seemed to be the favourite. I have to say, I spoke to Sir John Curtis afterwards, who said, you know, there's very little data out there. We got a little bit last night, didn't we, though? That seemed to suggest that actually the gap between Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss may not be as great as we had thought.
We certainly did. A curious poll that the Times reported had been commissioned by the Liz Truss campaign. I spoke to the Liz Truss campaign. They said they did not commission this poll. It's from a little-known pollster, although it's a member of the British Polling Council, which means it follows all the rules of publishing its data, and many people are peering over its tables today. But it's an Italian pollster that hasn't polled the Conservative Party membership before, that didn't seem to have a pedigree of the sort of tables and pools of voters that you might expect if you wanted to generate a consistent view. I spoke to Chris Curtis of Opinium, the pollsters, earlier today, who told me that it looks like a legitimate poll, but potentially it's worth taking with a pinch of salt, given that we don't have anything to compare it to, and we don't know the pedigree of this polling organisation when it comes to polling the membership. He happened to give me a plug that at least Opinium would have another poll out at the start of next week. And of course, the other poll that we have seen is YouGov, that have polled really rather accurately the Labour Party membership and the Conservative Party membership in 2019 and in 2015 for these leadership races, and they've been relatively accurate, so we can probably weight that a little bit higher in the grand scheme of things. We may well see another poll from them as well. But yes, as you say, the data is scarce right now. That's not to dismiss this poll that came out last night, but it is to ask some questions, given we don't know whether this is completely accurate, given the lack of pedigree when it comes to polling Conservative Party members by them before.